Denzel Hayes Washington Jr. was born on December 28, 1954, in Mount Vernon, New York. He was an American actor, producer, and director in a career spanning over 4 decades. Washington has received numerous accolades, including a Tony Award, 2 Academy Awards, 3 Golden Globes, and 2 Silver Bears. He was honored with the Cecil B. DeMille Lifetime Achievement Award in 2016, the AFI Life Achievement Award in 2019, and in 2020, the New York Times named him the greatest actor of the 21st century. In 2022, Washington received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. After training at the American Conservatory Theater, Washington began his career in theater, acting in performances off-Broadway. He first came to prominence in the NBC medical drama St. Elsewhere in 1982, even though he had appeared in a film before that, Carbon Copy, in 1981, where he played, of all things, the son of George Segal, who was a white guy. Yeah, it was a very interesting time. He was also in the film A Soldier Story, and Washington has won Academy Awards for Best Supporting Actor for his performance in Glory in 1989, as well as for Best Actor as playing a corrupt cop in Training Day. His other Oscar-nominated roles were in Cry Freedom in 1987, Malcolm X in 1992, The Hurricane in 1999, Flight in 2012, Fences in 2016, Roman J. Israel Esquire in 2017, and The Tragedy of Macbeth in 2021. He established himself as leading man with starring roles in Mo' Better Blues, Mississippi Masala, Philadelphia, Courage Under Fire, Remember the Titans, Man on Fire, Inside Man, and American Gangster. He starred in the Equalizer trilogy. Washington has also directed and starred in films such as Antoine Fisher, The Great Debaters, and of course Fences. Washington made his Broadway debut in 1988 in Checkmates. He won the Tony Award for Best Actor in a Play for starring in the Broadway revival of August Wilson's play Fences in 2010. He later directed and produced and starred in the film adaptation of said show. Washington has since returned to Broadway in the revivals of the Lorraine Hainsbury play A Raisin in the Sun and the Eugene O'Neill play The Iceman Cometh. He also has an education at Fordham University where he has a Bachelor's of Arts degree, has been married for 40 plus years, and has 4 children, including his son, John David Washington. I mean, when you think of the defining actors in the business, Denzel is usually a name that comes up many, many times, and he definitely deserves the honor. Sometimes a great Denzel Washington performance can overlook a really bad movie. And, there have been some bad Denzel Washington movies. Not bad movies, but movies that are just kind of like, they weren't necessarily bad, they just weren't up to par with what they should be. Even though Washington's given it his all, like, The Great Debaters is the perfect example of a film. This is the second film he did after Antoine Fisher, and the biggest problem with this movie is that it's kind of your typical underdog story, and a lot of the acting in this was very kind of wooden and bland. After watching, you kind of expect a little bit more from him than this, but I think we all kind of overlooked it because that same year he made American Gangster, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. But some other movies that I don't think are necessarily are great films with him in them. Heart Condition is one of those examples. It's kind of a generic comedy with Bob Hoskins in it, and I mean, it's a bad movie, but then again, there was also a far worse 1990 comedy about a black doctor playing a ghost in it with, which I don't think I need to say any more about that movie was, but, Deja Vu was one of those ones that felt like a movie that was like, it felt like a movie that could have worked, but it kind of screws up the time travel aspect big time, and you can't do that because what this movie does is create some of the biggest plot holes you could possibly have for a movie, and the film suffers because of it. Safe House, with some usually reliable actors, not just Washington, but also Ryan Reynolds, they keep the movie afloat, but the script is so poorly written, and the film has so many flaws to it. I don't hate it, I just wish it could have been a whole lot better, but probably the worst thing Denzel Washington's ever done as an actor is probably Two Guns, and it kind of gives a simplistic, predictable action movie that we've seen done to death so many times. I mean, the movie takes all the same lame brain moves that something like The Bourne Legacy did. Only not quite as horrendous as the movie was, but I really wanted to like Two Guns, but him and Mark Wahlberg just couldn't save that movie from being a terrible film. It's uninspired, it's a lazy film, it kind of takes the cheap way out at times, and the story doesn't make a lot of sense. The villains are not that strong. It's just not enjoyable to watch, and I expect a lot better from a guy like Denzel Washington and Mark Wahlberg, but even them couldn't save that movie in general. But I know this is supposed to be honoring the legacy of Denzel Washington, but he has made a lot of great films that are very much films that should be talked about in a number of different levels. I mean, you should be seeing films like the underrated gems like The Mighty Quinn and Mississippi Masala. Like, those are films that really are criminally underrated movies. A movie like Cry Freedom, where he plays Steve Biko, well, absolutely incredible film. Um, Mobile Blues. Mobile Blues is a terrific film. The Pelican Brief, a pretty good movie. Crimson Tide is a very good film. Devil in a Blue Dress, criminally underrated film. Easily one that should be seen. Book of Eli is a great film. Taking a Pelham 123 is one I really like. What else do we have? Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is very good. There's been a couple of ones that have not been that great. A Journal for Jordan, which he directed, was not that strong. Little Things. I thought it was good in The Magnificent Seven. Flight is really good. But what are some of the best ones overall? What are some of the what are the top 5 best Denzel Washington films that I could say you need to see these movies? Like, you need to see these films to show what a great actor Denzel Washington is. And like I mentioned before, number 5 is American Gangster, which I think is one of the best movies from the first decade of the 2000s. You got Russell Crowe and Denzel Washington reuniting for the first time since Virtuosity. They do a great job. It's one of Ridley Scott's best movies. Steve Cecilian does a great job of adapting the story, making a film that follows the true story of Washington's Frank Lucas to a T, with a great, phenomenal supporting cast, also doing a great job. It keeps you entertained throughout, and it's a movie that is well worth a watch. Of course, I got to mention Malcolm X. At the peak of Spike Lee's directorial career, he reunited with Washington for the 3rd time in a really phenomenal performance. In a movie that's nearly 3 hours long, but nevertheless, the movie keeps you so invested in what's going on that you really do not mind the long running time at all. And just a towering achievement on his part in that film. Philadelphia, one of the most influential movies of the 1990s. Washington's performance is great in the movie. And he manages to keep up with Tom Hanks, who's giving this powerhouse performance. And it's kind of the equivalent of the 90s equivalent of something like To Kill a Mockingbird. Taking a touchy subject for the time, doing it without being afraid to speak out the truth, like some other movies tried to do as of recently. Concussion. I think of a couple of other ones in particular. But number 2 is Training Day. You know, when you talk about Denzel Washington's best movies, Training Day is one of those ones that's just impossible not to include in there. Alonzo Harris is one of those great performances, and you can just see how much Washington puts his heart and soul into this role, and he just nails it. The final speech is one of the most badass and chilling moments of the film, and it features some of the most quotable lines of any movie in recent memory. I mean, you know, King Kong ain't got S on me. I mean, that's pretty much all you got to say about that one. But by far, his best movie, and my favorite Denzel Washington movie of all time, is, of course, Man on Fire, directed by Tony Scott. It's a movie that's so good that many people consider this to be the definitive Punisher movie. And for the most part, they're right. I mean, if you take Denzel Washington's character, John Creasy, and just change the name of him to Frank Castle, you would have what would easily be considered a Punisher movie. Washington is great in the film. The action is great. The acting by the rest of the cast is superb. Dakota Fanning is really fantastic in the film. Like, she's able to stay with Denzel Washington in this film, and it's great to see them reunite again recently in The Equalizer 3. And it just keeps you on the edge of your seat all the way to the very end. Like, this is a really, really well-made movie, a really damn good thriller with a lot of great performances overall. Christopher Walken's very good in the film as well. Radha Mitchell, Rachel DeConton, Mickey Rourke, Mark Anthony, with a great script by Brian Helgeland. It's maybe not the best Denzel Washington performance overall, but it's the one movie that I always go back to every once in a while, because it's just like, that's one of my favorite action thrillers of all time. Man on Fire, it's just a towering achievement. But Denzel Washington's career features a lot of towering achievements, even in movies where I don't think they got the proper respect they deserve, but they definitely deserve the attention that they deserve. I mean, The Tragedy of Macbeth is one of those movies that came out a couple of years ago that I thought was just really, really damn good. Directed by Joel Coen. Criminally underrated film. I think the Equalizer films are very underrated too. I mean, not a lot of people realize it, but those are the only sequels he's ever done as a filmmaker, as an actor. And that's something where, you know, actors do a lot of sequels, but those are the films that he's so committed to. He's also the producer on them. The fact that he's able to come back and do those films, that really says a lot about how much he likes playing that role a lot. And you could distance those movies compared to the Queen Latifah show that's been on the last couple of years, and you wouldn't have missed a thing. But with all that said, Denzel Washington really is that actor that I consider to be the top tier actor. I mean, he's a guy that will always give a great performance no matter what he's in, and it'll always feel like a very different performance, even though it may not feel like it's a very different performance, but it definitely feels like it's very, very different and very unique for him. Even in films where he's trying to save it, but he just can't do it. He'll usually give 110% no matter what he does. I mean, he's a guy that really does show his capabilities as an actor. He's shown why he's been one of the best actors for 40 plus years, and why he's easily considered the person I need to give a special award to. So Denzel Washington, if you're watching out there, if you're listening out there, I don't know if you even know who I am, but congratulations. I'm proud to make you the recipient of the second annual Reviewing Network Achievement Award.